You clicked. You're here. It's good to see you. Well, not literally see you, of course, as you and I both know. I'm looking down the barrel of a camera, but you get the idea. So glad that you've taken the time to click on this video, and let me offer you a tip for connection through the spoken word, which is relevant offline, but also is profoundly relevant, I suggest, online too, with virtual communication, where of course there is that bit more of a barrier, isn't there, between yourself as the presenter or the facilitator and the person or people who are listening to you. And the tip is this: the word you. Boost your you count. Now, it's such a simple idea, this, but once you crack it, it really can make a big difference. If you were listening carefully to the opening of this video, you may well have noticed the fact. Well, a couple of things. One is that I used the word you multiple times. In fact, you may even have noticed in the last 10 seconds or so I've used the word you quite a bit. Because if you think about it, if you use the word you put your focus on your listener more than on yourself. So often in presenting and engagement through conference calls and through Skype and so on, and perhaps Zoom calls, it tends to be very eye-focused. And as a result, of course, there's that bit more of a chance that the listener will feel disengaged because they won't feel part of it. Now, of course, it's possible for you to overdo it. But if you think about it, if you use the word you put your focus more on your listener than on yourself. Now, that's 6 in a sentence. I'll stop the counting here because you'll get tired. But you heard those yous, didn't you? And that one in that sentence. Did you hear it? Did you catch it? You caught that one, didn't you? For sure. You get the idea. Second thing you may have noticed in the opening is that I referred to you as an individual rather than as a group. So that was you singular rather than you plural. And again, it makes such a difference. Terry Wogan was a wonderful exponent of this. He, as you may well be aware, you heard that one, didn't you? As you may well be aware, he was a very popular and well-known Irish broadcaster, and hugely popular here in the UK too. And he had a radio show that he hosted for a number of years, which was wildly popular on BBC Radio 2. And in his closing show, when he retired from that programme, he closed by saying, and I think I've got the language right here, he said, "Thank you for being my friend." Isn't that good? There's a you in there, and notice friend, singular. Even though there were hundreds of thousands of people listening, probably more than 1 million, I don't know what the listenership was, but it would have been a huge number of people because people knew it was his last show. So it's something to consider. Is there a way in which you can both reference your listener more explicitly? The word you is a lovely way to channel your flow, and to treat them as an individual rather than as a group, because each person is indeed an individual. And you may have heard the line, "It felt like they were talking to me." Craig Valentine, the 1999 world champion of public speaking, has a lovely comment on this. I still remember this years later. Craig, if you're watching, then I trust you're well and keeping well. I continue to benefit from your wisdom over the years. And it's this: speak to one, look to all. And it's a lovely way to think about it. With the language, speak to one, speak to the individual, the person who's listening to you, even though you might be actually looking at a large number of people. So there's a tip for you to take away. And by the way, relax. If it feels a bit clunky at first, a bit awkward or tricky, that's okay. In coaching sessions I've run over the years, workshops, conferences, MBA groups, all sorts of audiences with individuals from all walks of life and at all levels of seniority, when making a change, frequently clients will say to me, "Oh, it feels a bit odd, feels a bit awkward," not just with language, but in other things too. I have to reassure them and say, that's okay, it's called change. It's much less obvious and much less clunky to the listener, to the audience member. So have fun with it, try it out. We live in interesting times. Onwards and upwards, and speak soon.